On a snowy Christmas Eve, being arrested has never been this dangerously irresistible. When two police officers take Emma into custody, sparks fly, hearts race, and a night meant for rules turns into a passionate journey of love, warmth, and Christmas magic. Snow fell in soft, thick flakes, blanketing the small town in a serene white glow. The streets were quiet, lit only by the warm golden glow of Christmas lights strung along shopfronts and porches. Inside the tiny café on Main Street, the faint smell of cinnamon and pine hung in the air, but outside, the night had a sharper edge, cold enough to make your breath cloud like smoke. She hadn't expected to be out this late. The holiday cheer had drawn her to the streets for a walk, hoping to soak in the magic, but fate seemed to have other plans. A flicker of red and blue lights reflected off the snow as a patrol car slid silently to a stop beside her. "Evening," said the taller officer, her voice calm but firm. Her dark hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, the kind of effortless beauty that made hearts skip a beat even in the harsh glare of duty. Beside her, her partner exuded quiet authority, shorter, with sharp green eyes that missed nothing. I didn't do anything," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. "You might want to come with us," the taller one replied, her gaze locking onto hers with an intensity that made her stomach twist. There was something in that look, a heat beneath the uniform, a magnetic pull she couldn't ignore. As they led her toward the patrol car, the snow continued to fall, muffling the world around them. It was impossible not to notice the closeness, the subtle brush of hands, the way their glances lingered just a fraction too long. The tension was electric, thick enough to make her heart race in time with the flashing lights. Inside the car, the warmth of the heaters battled the chill outside. The taller officer offered her a small, tentative smile, and her partner's fingers brushed hers in the process of handing her a cup of coffee. It was accidental, but neither could pretend it hadn't ignited something. "This doesn't feel like a normal arrest," she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. "Maybe some rules are meant to be bent," the taller officer murmured, leaning just slightly closer, her breath warm against her ear. And just like that, the world outside disappeared. The snow, the quiet streets, even the flashing lights became a backdrop to something far more intense, a connection neither of them had expected on a cold Christmas Eve. The patrol car cruised slowly through the quiet streets, tires crunching softly over the snow. Inside, the three women sat close in the small, heated space, the air thick with unspoken tension. Every movement, every glance, felt magnified in the intimate confines of the car. The shorter officer, her green eyes still sharp and alert, kept glancing at her partner, who seemed equally aware of the electricity in the air. The woman in the back seat, the one they'd arrested, couldn't help noticing it too. There was a strange, magnetic pull that made her pulse race, and suddenly, the idea of being handcuffed on Christmas Eve didn't feel entirely terrifying. "You know," the taller officer said casually, though her tone hinted at amusement, "most people don't make us feel this." Her eyes flicked to the woman in the back seat, lingering just long enough to leave a shiver in its wake. I don't know what you mean," she replied, trying to sound nonchalant, though her heart pounded in her chest. "Don't lie to yourself," the shorter officer said softly, reaching over to brush a lock of snow-dusted hair from her face. The contact was brief, almost accidental, but the warmth of her hand lingered longer than it should have, sending a thrill through her entire body. The town passed by in muted lights and snow-covered rooftops, but inside the car, the world had narrowed to this charged triangle of stolen glances and subtle touches. It was a dangerous, intoxicating dance, and none of them could deny it. Finally, the taller officer pulled the car to a stop outside a small, festively lit diner, a place that looked like it had come straight from a holiday card. She turned to the woman in the back seat with a wry smile. "You're going to need something warm before we talk about everything," she said, unlocking the door. The shorter officer opened her door as well, the glow from the diner spilling over the three of them. Stepping out into the falling snow, the arrested woman felt a thrill of anticipation mingled with nerves. The night was cold, yes, but somehow, the heat radiating from these two women made it impossible to feel anything but alive. And in that small town on Christmas Eve, beneath the twinkling lights and snowflakes, she realized something she hadn't expected. This night, this arrest, might just change her life forever. The bell above the diner door jingled as the trio stepped inside, the warm air wrapping around them like a soft blanket. The smell of coffee, baked goods, and pine-scented decorations filled the space. The place was quiet, mostly empty except for a few late-night patrons, giving them a sense of privacy despite being out in public. The taller officer, named Detective Mara Hayes, guided them to a booth by the window. Her partner, Officer Lila Brooks, slid in opposite the woman they had arrested, Emma Carter, who still wore a hint of snow on her coat and a nervous, excited flush on her cheeks. Mara handed Emma a steaming cup of cocoa, the whipped cream melting into rich chocolate. "You need something to warm you up," she said softly, her eyes lingering in a way that made Emma's pulse quicken. Emma wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the heat seep into her fingers. I can't believe this is happening," she murmured, her voice low. But she didn't mean the arrest. She meant the two women, the proximity, the way her heart had been racing since the moment they'd stopped her. Lila leaned slightly forward, resting her elbows on the table. "It's Christmas Eve," she said, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. "Sometimes, rules, bend a little on nights like this." Her green eyes sparkled, and Emma felt a flutter she hadn't experienced in years. The three of them talked, first cautiously, then with more ease as the cocoa warmed them from the inside out. Every touch, a hand brushing a sleeve, a finger lingering on the edge of the table, sent tiny shocks through Emma. Mara and Lila exchanged subtle glances that didn't go unnoticed, hinting at an unspoken understanding. Tonight was different. At one point, Mara's hand accidentally brushed Emma's as she reached for her own cup. Emma's breath caught. Mara's gaze softened, lingering on her lips before returning to her eyes. Lila noticed the look, a small, knowing smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. The tension was thick, electric, but no one spoke, words weren't necessary. Outside, snow continued to fall gently, dusting the diner windows with frosted patterns. Inside, the warmth of the room and the warmth of these two women wrapped Emma in a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: excitement, desire, and the promise of something entirely unexpected. By the time they left the diner, laughter and teasing lightened the air between them, the earlier formalities of an arrest forgotten. Lila slipped her arm around Emma as they walked to the car, and Mara's hand brushed Emma's lightly on her back. The snow crunched beneath their feet, but inside, Emma felt like she was walking on fire. This Christmas Eve had started as an ordinary night, but now it promised more than anyone could have imagined: a night of sparks, warmth, and a slow-burning romance that neither of them wanted to end. The snow fell harder now, painting the town in thick, soft white. Streetlights cast golden halos through the flakes, making the world seem magical and almost unreal. Emma walked between Mara and Lila, their arms brushing against hers, the warmth of their bodies seeping through her coat. Every touch sparked something deep in her, a longing she hadn't admitted even to herself. They stopped near the edge of the town square, where an old clock tower stood, its hands frozen at 11:45. The square was empty, the usual holiday bustle long gone, leaving only the three of them and the falling snow. Mara tilted her head, her dark eyes glinting with mischief. "You know," she said softly, "this isn't exactly how I imagined spending Christmas Eve." Her gaze shifted to Emma, lingering just a fraction too long. Emma's breath hitched. Neither did I," she admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. Lila stepped closer, her fingers brushing Emma's as if by accident, but the electricity of it made Emma shiver. For a moment, none of them spoke. The snow swirled around them, muffling the world, and the quiet made every sound, every laugh, every whispered word, every soft intake of breath, feel amplified. Then Mara reached out, tucking a strand of Emma's hair behind her ear. Her fingers lingered, warm and tender. Emma's eyes met hers, and for a heartbeat, the world outside disappeared. Lila, not to be left out, moved closer, her shoulder brushing Emma's. "You have no idea what kind of trouble you've gotten yourself into tonight," she teased, her green eyes sparkling. But the teasing was layered, a promise of more, a dare wrapped in warmth and desire. Emma felt herself leaning in, drawn to both of them at once, her heart racing. The snow fell in thick sheets, landing softly on their coats and hair, but inside, the air between them was hotter than any fireplace. Mara smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. Maybe trouble isn't always a bad thing, she murmured. Lila's hand found Emma's again, more deliberately this time, fingers interlacing with hers. The intimacy was intoxicating, and Emma could feel herself melting into it, letting go of caution, letting herself be present in this moment, this night, this spark. The three of them laughed softly, a warm sound against the cold, and Emma realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. And in the quiet magic of Christmas Eve, surrounded by snow, warmth, and two women whose touches and glances made her heart ache with desire, she understood that this night would change her life forever. The three of them returned to Mara's cozy apartment on the outskirts of town, the snow crunching underfoot as they hurried inside. The warmth hit them immediately, a sharp contrast to the icy world outside. A small fire flickered in the hearth, casting golden light over the room, dancing across the walls and the three figures standing awkwardly in the entryway. Emma shook off her coat, still catching her breath from the cold and the adrenaline of the night. Lila stepped closer, brushing a snowflake from Emma's shoulder. Mara followed, her eyes dark with intent, and the air between them hummed with electricity. "You're not usually this reckless," Mara said, a small smirk playing on her lips. Her voice was low, intimate, and it made Emma's pulse spike. Emma laughed nervously. "I didn't plan on being arrested tonight," she admitted. But even as she spoke, she felt the pull of both women, their presence enveloping her like a warm blanket. Lila set a cup of cocoa on the coffee table and leaned against the edge, her eyes never leaving Emma's face. "Maybe we just wanted to see you a little closer," she said softly, a teasing smile tugging at her lips. Her hand brushed Emma's again, more deliberately this time, and the contact sent shivers through her. The room was small, the firelight flickering over the snow-dusted windows, and in that intimacy, all the pretense of the arrest and the night outside melted away. Mara moved closer, her hand lightly resting on Emma's arm. Lila mirrored the gesture on the other side. Emma's heart raced as warmth and desire pooled in her chest. "Do you feel this too?" Emma asked, her voice barely audible. Mara's lips curved into a slow smile. "Every second," she murmured. Lila leaned in closer, and the three of them laughed softly at the absurdity and perfection of the moment, strangers and yet not, arrested and yet entirely free. They settled near the fire, sitting close enough for their shoulders to brush. Conversations turned into whispers, whispers into laughter, and every accidental touch left a lingering heat between them. The night was theirs, suspended in a bubble of warmth, snow, and Christmas magic. Emma realized she had never felt this alive. Here, in this quiet apartment with two women who made her heart ache and flutter at the same time, she could let herself feel desire, attraction, and maybe even love. As the snow fell silently outside, the fire crackled and warmed them, and their hands found each other again, entwining naturally, intuitively. It wasn't just physical warmth, it was connection, intimacy, and a sense of belonging Emma hadn't felt in years. And on that Christmas Eve, with the snow blanketing the world outside, Emma, Mara, and Lila knew one undeniable truth: this night, these moments, and these feelings were real, and they weren't letting them go. The fire crackled, filling the room with a soft, hypnotic rhythm. Outside, the snow had slowed to a gentle fall, the world silent except for the occasional hush of wind through the trees. Inside, the apartment felt like a separate universe, warm and intimate, alive with electricity and the quiet heartbeat of three women discovering each other. Emma leaned back against the couch, Mara at her side, Lila on the other. Their shoulders brushed, fingers intertwined almost unconsciously, and the closeness made Emma's chest tighten in anticipation. Every glance, every subtle touch, carried the weight of unspoken desire. "You know," Mara said, her voice low and teasing, "I wasn't planning to spend my night off with anyone, let alone two incredibly distracting women." Her dark eyes met Emma's, and a shiver ran through her. Lila smirked, leaning closer, her green eyes sparkling. "Distracting? That sounds like a challenge," she teased, brushing her hand lightly over Emma's. The warmth of her touch made Emma's knees feel weak. Emma laughed softly, a little breathless. "I think I'm enjoying the distraction," she admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. Mara's fingers traced the edge of her hand, Lila's rested lightly on her shoulder, and Emma felt pulled in two directions at once, and yet, somehow, she didn't want to let go. They talked, laughed, and teased, but every word carried tension, every look lingered longer than necessary. Emma found herself leaning in when Mara laughed, tilting toward Lila when she whispered something soft in her ear. The night blurred, the firelight casting shadows that flickered over flushed cheeks and smiling lips. At one point, Mara reached for Emma's hand, threading their fingers together. "This feels right," she murmured, her thumb brushing lightly over the back of Emma's hand. Lila's free hand found Emma's other, completing the connection, grounding her in the warmth and intimacy of the moment. Emma's heart pounded. "It does," she said softly, letting herself melt into the attention, the care, and the desire that surrounded her. It wasn't just attraction, it was connection, trust, and an undeniable spark of love that made the air between them almost tangible. The clock chimed midnight, echoing softly in the quiet apartment. Snow swirled outside the windows, reflecting the golden light from the fire. The moment felt suspended, magical, perfect. Mara leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. Lila rested her head lightly against Emma's shoulder. In that moment, Emma realized she was exactly where she belonged, caught between two women who had captivated her heart and mind, in a night that had begun as an arrest and had transformed into something far more powerful and real. The snow continued to fall, and inside the apartment, the three of them wrapped in warmth, intimacy, and whispered confessions, Emma understood a truth she couldn't deny. This Christmas Eve had given her more than she could have ever imagined: love, desire, and a connection that would linger long after the snow melted. The fire had dwindled to glowing embers, casting a soft, golden hue across the room. The three of them sat close together on the couch, the warmth of their bodies mingling with the heat of the dying fire. Outside, the snow continued to fall silently, layering the world in soft white, while inside, the night had become its own universe, a world of laughter, whispered confessions, and quiet touches that spoke louder than words. Emma found herself nestled between Mara and Lila, their arms draped around her as if they were all one. Mara brushed her fingers over Emma's hand again, lingering just long enough to send sparks through her. Lila leaned in, resting her head lightly against Emma's shoulder, her warmth comforting and thrilling all at once. "You know," Mara murmured, her voice low and intimate, "I never thought an arrest could end like this." Her dark eyes gleamed with mischief and something deeper: desire, connection, and care all rolled into one. Emma laughed softly, a little breathless. "I never thought I'd be here with both of you." The words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy with truth. Lila smiled, her green eyes sparkling in the firelight. "Sometimes the unexpected nights are the ones that matter the most," she said softly, brushing her fingers over Emma's arm. The three of them leaned closer, the tension and longing between them finally breaking into something soft, tender, and all-encompassing. Mara pressed a gentle kiss to Emma's temple, Lila brushed her lips against Emma's cheek, and Emma's heart swelled with warmth, desire, and an almost dizzying sense of belonging. They whispered to each other, sharing stories, hopes, and dreams, their voices low and intimate. Every laugh, every brush of skin against skin, every soft touch was charged with emotion. The arrest, the snow, the Christmas Eve, all of it had led them here, to this small apartment filled with warmth, love, and undeniable connection. Time seemed to stop. Outside, the snow sparkled under the streetlights, but inside, the three of them had their own universe. Mara's hand found Emma's, Lila's fingers entwined with hers, and in the quiet intimacy of the night, Emma realized she had never felt anything like this. "I don't want this night to end," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. "Neither do we," Mara replied, leaning in to press her lips softly against Emma's. Lila kissed the other side of her face, and the three of them shared a laugh, a sigh, a moment that felt eternal. On that small snowy Christmas Eve, surrounded by warmth, love, and passion, Emma, Mara, and Lila discovered a truth that would stay with them forever. Some nights, some moments, and some loves are unforgettable, magical in every sense of the word. The fire crackled one last time as they settled closer, wrapped in blankets, warmth, and each other. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside, the night was theirs, a perfect Christmas Eve, full of passion, laughter, and the undeniable spark of love. Sunlight filtered through the frost-covered windows, painting the room in soft golden hues. The snow outside sparkled, crisp and untouched, a perfect winter wonderland. Inside, the warmth of the fire, now just glowing embers, mingled with the soft scent of pine from a small Christmas tree in the corner. Emma stirred first, stretching and blinking against the gentle light. She felt the warmth of bodies pressed close on either side. Mara's dark hair framed her face, and Lila's head rested lightly on her shoulder. A smile curved Emma's lips. The events of the night washed over her in a warm, happy rush. Slowly, she shifted, careful not to disturb them, and took in the scene. The two women who had started the night as her captors were now here, entangled with her in a peaceful, intimate morning. The tension, desire, and sparks of yesterday had transformed into something soft, profound, and real. Mara stirred, opening her eyes and offering Emma a small, sleepy smile. "Merry Christmas," she whispered, brushing a lock of hair from Emma's face. Lila's green eyes followed, twinkling with mischief and affection. "Merry Christmas," she echoed, leaning in to press her lips gently against Emma's temple. Emma laughed softly, the sound light and full of happiness. "I can't believe how perfect last night turned out." "Neither can we," Mara murmured, wrapping an arm around her. "You've changed everything tonight, Emma. In the best way." Lila kissed the back of Emma's hand, her touch lingering. "I think it's safe to say, this is just the beginning," she said with a grin, her voice warm and full of promise. The three of them sat together, sipping cocoa, sharing small gifts Mara and Lila had brought, and basking in the quiet joy of a Christmas morning spent together. Outside, the snow continued to blanket the small town, magical and serene, but inside, the warmth wasn't just from the fire, it was from the connection they shared, a bond forged in unexpected moments and strengthened by laughter, touch, and love. Emma felt a happiness she hadn't known in years, a sense of belonging, safety, and excitement for what the future could hold. The night of an arrest had transformed into the beginning of something far greater, a love that was steamy, passionate, and real. And as the morning sun touched the snow-covered streets, Emma, Mara, and Lila held each other close, knowing that some Christmases, the unexpected ones, were the most magical of all. By Christmas morning, a chance encounter in the snow has turned into a love that warms the heart, ignites the soul, and proves that some nights, and some hearts, are simply meant to be together.